over at the Supreme Court. Justices seem ready to back that web designer who's declining to make wedding sites for same-sex couples, wedding websites this is, in what is now the latest clash between religious freedoms and LGBTQ plus rights. We've been talking about this case on the show because it could have real big implications, right, for both religious freedoms and the rights of LGBTQ plus people in this country. The conservative justices have seemed sympathetic toward the web designer. Right now, though, obviously it's not clear how the conservative majority court will rule since they haven't actually laid out a decision yet. They've just heard oral arguments 24 hours ago. In the court for that, of course, was Kristen Waggoner, lawyer for Lori Smith, the wedding website designer, president and CEO of the Alliance Defending Freedom. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today, Kristen.
Thank you for having me.
Let me start off with the question that I asked the Colorado Attorney General, who was here with us on set yesterday after arguments. The same question I asked him, which was, you were in the room. I mean, you were doing the argument. How do you think it went?
I think it went well. I think the court recognized that all Americans should have the freedom to speak messages that are consistent with their conscience, regardless of what side of the aisle or what view we have on a particular topic.
One of the key things that came up again and again was this issue of where do you draw the line? Mm-hmm. Where does that line exist? You know, Politico titled their piece about this, Hypotheticals Gone Wild. And there were a lot of hypotheticals here. I want to play for you some of the back and forth from some of the justices on this issue. Watch.
However we decide this case obviously applies to others.
What's the difference between that and I don't believe black people and white people should get married?
So I don't know that we can say that just because we have a religious objection to same-sex marriage in this situation, that wouldn't necessarily implicate religious objections to other kinds of situations.
Other kinds of situations she's talking about there, Justice Jackson, that go beyond LGBTQ plus rights when it comes to things that are racist or anti-Semitic, for example. So where is the line here? How do you draw that?
Well, there are a number of lines that the court has already drawn. First of all, Lori Smith is involved in creating custom speech, meaning it's not something that you go in and is pre-made. And she's asked to design custom messages that express ideas that violate her convictions. She serves everyone. She has LGBT clients, but she doesn't express all messages. It's based on what the message is, not who the person is. I think we can think about the LGBT website designer who may not want to have to be compelled to speak messages for the Catholic Church on their views, or a Democrat who wouldn't want to write a press release for a Republican. So the issue does transcend this particular issue, and it involves all of us and whether the government can tell us what to say. And that's wrong. The First Amendment stops the government from doing that.
In this instance, we're talking about that anti-discrimination law, non-discrimination law in Colorado. And the argument has been made by those on the other side here that if Lori Smith doesn't want to she can pull her services out of the public marketplace, that she has made the choice to enter the public marketplace here. How do you respond to that piece of the argument?
You don't lose your constitutional rights because you sell the art that you create. And it's one thing if it's pre-made art, or one thing that it's a good or service sitting on a shelf. It's something quite different to impose six-figure penalties and jail time on individuals who don't want to create messages that violate their convictions. When we think about it, whether we support the buy shift so drastically should terrify all of us. It's not the government's role to tell us what to think and what to say. More speech is the answer, not less.
The argument from sort of the other side of this is that the government is looking to protect the rights of people who need those rights protected. Let me share with you, I mentioned Phil Weiser, the Colorado Attorney General, was with us yesterday. Let me play a little bit for you from what he had to say about this issue that we're talking about here of where is that line? Where are those protections and why they're so important? Watch.
We're going to start having to figure out where to draw that line. If someone makes specialized lattes, do they have an expressive interest in saying, I'm sorry, I don't want to serve Mormons because I don't believe in the Mormon religion? That set of hypotheticals could become reality if we lose this case.
Why is he wrong? I heard you kind of chuckle a little in that example, but in this hypothetical here about somebody who makes lattes, theoretically saying that's my expressive intent, that's my sort of expressive speech there in that artistic endeavor, and I don't want to, let's say, to use this example, serve Mormons. Why is that not a realistic outcome potentially if the court does rule in your favor?
Because this case is about speech. Someone who's serving lattes isn't creating speech, and the fact that Colorado can't even engage on the merits of this case should tell you all you need to know. There is no question that under Colorado's theory, they can compel a Democrat to have to write for a Republican. They've admitted that their law applies to speechwriters, to filmmakers, to poets, to the soccer mom who's creating custom signs just trying to earn extra money on Etsy. This law is so broad and applies to so many categories that particularly in the world we're living in, giving the government the power to censor, silence, and punish people is something I'm not willing to do and the Constitution doesn't allow. It's not just about marriage. It's not just about Lori. It's about all of our right to be able to speak freely.
The justices will ultimately make this determination when they hand down their decision, likely in a matter of months from now. To be clear, Lori Smith has not actually designed a website here. This is sort of, I don't want to say preliminary, but still kind of hypothetical. It was raised in court yesterday that perhaps the court could rule against you, but leave the door open for Lori Smith to come back if this actually ever came in front of her and came before her. Is that something that you would pursue if it did go that direction? I assume that you would continue to appeal to the court until this matter is resolved.
Well, we would have to, but Lori Smith has been in business for over 10 years designing websites. She's received requests to design wedding websites, but hasn't been able to do so. We can simply look at the case of Masterpiece Cake Shop to know how Colorado respond, and they've been fighting her for 6 years, telling her that if she enters the wedding industry and doesn't create messages that violate her convictions, that she will violate the law. The whole point of someone being able to challenge an unjust law before the court puts them in jail or charges them or imposes a civil penalty is what this case is about.
Kristen Waggoner, thank you very much for being on with us. I know that it's been a busy couple of days for you here in Washington. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.